The world of My Hero Academia has a lot of powerful characters, ranging from the street tier sludge villain all the way to the weather changing punches of power. So that begs the question of who is the strongest. Well, I am here to tell you guys who I think is the strongest, who I think is the weakest, and I will be ranking pretty much everyone that has some concrete feats to speak of. Given that My Hero Academia is incredibly matchup based though, the characters will not be ranked strictly on attack power or strength and stuff like that. The characters will be ranked on their ability to defeat other characters. For example, Denki has some powerful electric attacks with good AoE. However, let's compare him to someone like Lady Nagant, whose attack power is pretty much just a bullet. This looks like it's beneficial to Denki, but I think everyone who watched the show knows that both feat-wise and threat level-wise, Nagant is ranked higher than Denki, so it isn't just about power. The characters will be ranked in tiers because there's not that much information on some characters that I can quantifiably rank them on each tier. So the tiers will not be ranked, just classifications of power. Someone on a higher tier is definitely stronger than someone on a lower tier though. Tiers will be reflective of the My Hero Ultra Analysis databook, which actually ranks all the villains in terms of threat level in tiers. However, I will not be abiding by this because the villains are ranked after My Villain Academia, so someone like Shigaraki, who is ranked at a threat level S, obviously becomes way stronger than that by the end of the series. Finally, the characters will be ranked at their absolute peak throughout the story. So without any further ado, let's just begin with rank E, and the only character on this list is going to be none other than Toru Hagakure. I think most people can agree with this. She's pretty much just a regular person, and other than just being invisible, she can be effective against beam attacks, but other than some very, very specific matchups, she can be really useful in those. I think pretty much only character she might be able to beat is Aoyama, and even then, Aoyama still might have some other ways to win. Next up, we have the D tier, and these characters are significantly more powerful than Hagakure and could beat regular people on a regular basis. So let's start with none other than Minoru Mineta. So Mineta is below average physicality, but his balls can be very helpful in capturing enemies. Despite that, he does tend to bleed when he uses them too much, so I don't think he can beat that many characters without prep time, so he can't really go that much higher than, D tier. Next we have Ojiro. He seems like a pretty solid martial artist, except he has a tail. The tail can be pretty helpful for mobility, and it was even able to push back Kirishima's hardening, but he just doesn't fight that much, so we can't really tell how strong he actually is. Next we have Sero, who is like Spider-Man, except he just has the capture ability and the mobility. Despite that, he's seriously lacking in offensive power, and he pretty much only gets frozen by Todoroki throughout the entire series in terms of fighting. Next we have Sato. He has some very powerful attacks just by super strengthening them up with sugar. However, he is at a time limit with this, and if someone is much faster than him, they'll just outlast him and he'll just become useless for the rest of the fight, so he can't go much higher. Kami is going to be a problem because I have no idea where to rank her, so this is where I think she might be. Her quirk is very useful with creating illusions, but that doesn't help that much in a one-on-one fight. And I can't even tell how good of a fighter she is because it wasn't even her that fought, it was Toga. So I think D tier is where she is. She might be higher, we just have no idea. Next we have the C tier. So these characters are a step up above the D tier and characters with very helpful abilities, but tend to struggle in this one-on-one kind of format. First, we have Koda. He has incredible versatility with his animals, but animals is very situational and very dependent on his surroundings. So his quirk can't be relied on all the time. Despite that, however, I do think it is very powerful and might give him the advantage in some fights. Next up, we have Jiro. We don't know that much about her other than the fact that she had the balls to take on All For One, which on its own is pretty impressive. She has no mobility at all, and her sound-based attacks, while effective, is only really super effective in certain matchups and can't be relied on all the time, especially when she has no durability. Next, we have Frobby. Well, she's pretty fast, pretty versatile, and has long-range attacks, but not that much attack power. Next, we have Aoyama, who has some very powerful attacks with his naval laser. However, it can come at a cost, even though it can pierce concrete walls. It is powerful, but it does come at the cost of the tummy aches, which I think prevents them from going that much higher. We have characters in the B tier who have significant power, speed, or durability, but aren't super well-rounded, which means they have counters, and that's why I don't think they can go that much higher than the A tiers, which are well-rounded. Mina has very powerful acid attacks and pretty strong physicality as well, just being able to uppercut a lot of people like she's playing fighting games or something. However, despite this, her mobility is nothing to speak of, but defensively she does have Acid Man, which is fairly helpful. She can't go higher than B tier, but she's powerful. Next we have Denki. So Denki has some powerful electric attacks that can be used at both long range and close range with the stun gun charge and his sharpshooting. However, obviously it comes at the big risk of overgoing his wattage limit, going dumb. He's like Aoyama, but with better close range fighting capabilities in my opinion. So I think he's slightly higher. Then we have Kendo. So Kendo doesn't fight very much, but her big fist is able to crush Momo's tungsten shield, which is very impressive. And she seems like a good fighter, but she just doesn't do that much. And now we have Tetsu and Kirishima. Both of them are very similar in terms of stats. They both can go hard, which makes them strong, durable, but very slow. Kirishima has Unbreakable, but Tetsu can go and withstand high temperatures. So they're both very similar, but I think Kirishima is just slightly stronger, even though, they're basically the same, so they're on the same tier. In terms of fights, they pretty much fight each other to a stalemate. And while Kirishima does have Unbreakable, Unbreakable is not actually unbreakable, as Rappa was able to break it. So they're similar, I would say basically the same. Next, we have Fat Gum. So Fat Gum has some incredible durability, being able to withstand Rappa's punches. In terms of attack power, he was able to reflect Rappa's attack power. Despite this, however, his fat absorption isn't the most impressive thing, given that Tokuyami was able to escape from it even in broad daylight, so I don't think he can go much higher. Next, we have Shinso. Shinso's brainwashing, while powerful, in a one-on-one setup isn't super effective, given that he has to stun them and then shock them. So to fight, he basically is a free hit. However, despite brainwashing's limited capabilities in this lineup, he still has the Binding Cloth, which, while admittedly he can't use as well as Aizawa, is still a super effective tool and lets him defeat fighters that could be stronger than him and have quirks. Next, we have Ida. Pretty obviously has some incredible speed, with his Reciprocal Turbo being stated by Deku to be even faster than Gran Torino. While this is super impressive, Ida has difficult turning while in this state, which makes his attacks pretty predictable and relatively easy to avoid. His attack power is quite decent because of the speed, and durability isn't that important if you have speed, so he could be as high as A tier. I just think he needed more fights, so I'm gonna put him here. Next, we have Midnight. So Midnight has no mobility, but that's okay because her stun with her quirk is very helpful. She doesn't have that much attack power, and she can get overwhelmed, as she did with those villains during Paranormal Liberation Front War. Despite this, however, her quirk is still very helpful and can be a win condition in some fights. Next, we have President Mike, who is basically Jiro with longer ranged attacks and more easily mobile as well. He also seems like a pretty decent fighter, being able to punch the lights out of Garaki like this. So I'm going to put him here. He also has more experience than Jiro, so I just think he's just a little bit higher than Jiro. Now we have Night Eye. So Night Eye is hard to rank because his strength is very impressive, being able to carry those COs that weigh 5 kilograms each, and being able to use them with as much dexterity as he can. Foresight, however, needs contact to win, and against ranged attacks or enemies with high durability, he might struggle. Next, we have Compress. So Mr. Compress is similar to Night Eye, where if he touches you, he gets his win condition. But his win condition is that he can pretty much kill you by taking away your body part. And he has range attacks as well by pocketing stuff and throwing it. He's kind of hard to judge because he doesn't fight, but the guidebook put him as a B tier, so you know what, I'll just agree with that, and I think that's fair for this character. He does get knocked out by Mirio, but overall he's pretty impressive in my opinion. We have Gang Orca, who doesn't fight that much, but he does have his Sonic Boom attacks, which work both long range and close range. While the effect does fizzle out at long range, it can still stun enemies. We don't know that much about him to put him that much higher. I do think he is like a B tier kind of character though. Alright, for Inasa and Sheiji, I have no idea where to put them because they just don't fight that much. Inasa could be B tier, could be A tier, and so can Sheiji. I think Inasa could be A, Sheiji could be B. Inasa was able to outspeed Todoroki but while in middle school, which is a feat, I guess. And he gets beaten by Gang Orca, and that's about it. Yeah, I don't know how to scale him. He also just fights some twice clones, but they're twice clones and he has an AoE quirk. So because he can fly, I think he could be an A tier. We just have no idea. He doesn't do anything else. Then we have Sheiji, who does even less. He pretty much has one fight. He does have a win condition by just touching you with his fingers, and he can manipulate his fingers well. It's just like we don't really know because he only fights one time. So I think he's like a B tier. His fingers, while powerful, like if he takes too much damage, his win condition is also negated. So like, yeah, I don't think he can be A tier, whereas I think Inasa could be. So I think Inasa could be A or could be B if he fought more. Sheiji, I think, is just B tier. Now we have the big boys in the A tier. This is where I think all the characters start getting seriously powerful. And let's start with Shoji. So Shoji might not look like much, but he has some very impressive feats in the final war, namely his signature attack, the Octo Blow, being able to stagger and knock back Giant Spinner. This is incredibly impressive, and his dupla arms overall just give him a lot of versatility. All these arms just give him enhanced strength and durability as well, because he can protect and defend while also dealing significant damage. So I think he is an A tier, though I do think he's one of the lower ones on this tier. Next we have Spinner. Well, this is going to be one of the big deviations because the guidebook ranks him before he becomes a giant, and just by nature of being a giant means that he's much stronger and much more durable. The guidebook ranked him as a C, but that was after MVA where he was pretty much just a lizard, so he's obviously way higher now. Next we have Momo, and this was a nightmare to scale because I think her upper limit is about 2 cannons, but given that she's a hero, she doesn't do that much with her quirk. She has some win conditions like the sedative she made that was strong enough to even stop Gigantomachia, so she's very versatile and she's very smart. But she is limited by the fact that she's a hero and there's limits to what she can make. Also proven that she isn't the best one-on-one, given that during the Swords Festival, Tokuyami pretty easily defeated her. So she isn't the best in this kind of setup, even though she's very versatile and can be deadly with prep time. Next we have Mount Lady. Well, she just has incredible strength, just, being a giant. Being able to halt Maki at all is very impressive, even though obviously Maki is more powerful than her. And despite this though, despite being a giant, her attack power isn't the greatest because she's overwhelmed by Makia, and even regular normal size compressed flying into her face were able to knock her down. So despite being a giant, she isn't invincible, it's just she's strong because she's a giant. We have Gento Criminal. This was another very difficult character to scale because all the fights are strictly one-on-one, and throughout many points of the story, including his best feat with lifting UA, he's amped by La Brava all the time. However, despite this, we have seen his regular normal state elasticity be able to reflect some of Deku's 20% smashes, which is very impressive and I think puts him on this tier on its own. If you count the UA Island feat, he could be S tier, but I think narratively wise, he's just like an A tier. Next, we have Kurogiri, another difficult character scale. We're on a string of those. But he has pretty much infinite speed, being able to teleport, and his attack power is actually very impressive because he could just split the portal halfway and kill you, no matter how strong you are. Despite this, his durability isn't the best, given that Gran Torino's one kick was able to knock him down, and later he straight up dies to Bakugo biting him. So it's kind of like, it's hard to catch him, but if you do, you could do damage to him. Next we have Rappa. So Rappa has some incredible attack power, being able to overwhelm both Fat Gum and Kiroshima's Unbreakable. Despite this incredible feat of strength and speed, his quirk is explicitly just strong arm, which means that his quirk power and strength is all in his arms. I think this limits his durability, since his durability is just his basic raw physique, and that's why Overhaul assigned him a shield partner. He's later even captured by Centipede, so clearly he's not super durable. Even though he looks big and strong, his quirk is only in his fist, so I don't think he can go that much higher. Next we have Nejire, who has flight and energy. Her energy is very powerful, being able to wound Shigaraki to some extent. This is incredibly impressive given how strong Shigaraki is. Being able to fly as well is also very helpful, that not that many characters have. And All of this is at a cost of some of her stamina, though her stamina reserve seems to be very high since she uses her quirk to great extent, though it can be limited to some extent as we see. Now we have Tamaki, who has incredible versatility, and his strongest attack, the Plasma Cannon, was also able to wound Shigaraki. He just has incredible versatility overall. He isn't the strongest, but he is incredibly good at everything, so I think he belongs here. Then we have Mirko. This one is a bit controversial given how impressive her feat is, but after some digging it isn't as impressive as it sounds. Her main feat and the main reason why she's so high is because she managed to defeat 2 high-end Nomu. And if you know how strong Hood is, you know how strong the high-end Nomu are. However, this logic is a bit flawed given that the high-end Nomu she fight weren't at their best. Garaki straight up says that he needed a Hood to get 10 hours of activation time before he was at his best, and that he wanted at least 3 hours of the other high end. Later in the fight, when they start waking up just a little bit, she stops being able to land any attacks, and she says that it's not because she was getting weaker, but because the Nomu were getting stronger. And this is all in a rapid few seconds. I think she is very impressive, but being able to defeat Nomus because they were just getting up is basically killing someone in their sleep, and not as impressive as I think it sounds on paper because high-ends are crazy. Next, we have Ridestro. He's very powerful. He managed to match a Ragnarok Tokoyami. Even though he was overwhelmed, he's still incredibly strong. He was also able to pretty much manhandle Shigaraki before his awakening. On top of that, the guidebook seems to agree and put him at a threat level A, as just an incredibly well-balanced and powerful fighter. Next, we have Edshot, who all we know is that he fought and defeated Ridestro. We don't see this fight at all, but we know that it looked close given that both sides seemed injured, even though Edshot seemed to win, and this is pretty much his only feat, so he's in A tier. Next, we have Best Genist. So, Best Genist has some pretty impressive feats, being able to restrain the League and even Makia. However, Makia was sedated, so I would say he wasn't fighting back to his best. His durability is limited as he got basically packed up by All For One, and his quirk seemed to have some limits and can put some stress on his body when pushed. Next, we have Gran Torino. Gran Torino is hard to judge because when he was at his prime, he was able to stagger and just beat up All Might, which is crazy, but we don't know how experienced his All Might was. So I can't really rank Gran Torino at his prime, I just rank it from when we see him. In the show, he's able to beat up Nomus and dodge a lot of Shigaraki's attacks, although when he is caught, he's pretty much taken out. So I think because of his age, his durability and stamina isn't the best, but he's still incredibly fast and good in the air, which is helpful. Next, we have Stain. So Stain is just a perfect fighter, being incredibly tenacious, having good fighting instincts and good speed. He was able to almost win the 3v1 against Ida, Deku, and Todoroki, with the most impressive part being that it was due to his own mistakes. While he is strong, he is not invincible, as against All For One, this happened. Finally, we have Muscular, who has incredible power and speed and insane durability. He was able to withstand a 100% smash, and later when he gets serious, his muscles were able to match a weakened 100% smash just straight up head on. Despite this incredible durability, it does have some limits. If you're able to land 2 powerful hits to break the outer layer and then damage his real body, he can't be beaten, but it takes 2 very powerful consecutive hits to overpower him. Alright, and next up we have the mystery tier. These are characters that are incredibly difficult to scale for one reason or another, and I think their skill level is around A tier, but I don't know. These characters are Toga, Monoma, Aizawa, and Mirio, and I think this makes sense. So Toga has incredible fighting ability, being able to land a hit on Aizawa, and the guidebook even agrees that she is an A tier fighter, so I'll just stick with that. Monoma, on the other hand, while his copy can be very dangerous if he gets his hand on his opponent, as a hand-to-hand fighter, he isn't the most impressive. We've seen him land a hit on Deku off guard, and he fights Uraraka and gets basically manhandled, so he isn't the best fighter, but his win condition is powerful. Next, we have Aizawa. He fights multiple enemies with his binding cloth and pretty much beats all of them up. It's incredible how good of a fighter he is, and it's reflected that the guidebook gave him an S+ in technique. Despite this, he does have some limitations that keep him from going any higher and being ranked. So if his opponent is just flat out stronger than him, he will lose the fight. And more damning to him is that you can time your attack well enough, you can land a hit on him without erasing your quirk like Shigaraki did. So I have no idea where to rank him. Next, we have Mirio. He has some basically just normal person attack power, since, you know, most characters say that his attack power is basically just non-existent. The reason he's so powerful though is because of his permeation, which makes him pretty much invulnerable. Despite this, he has been caught off guard like All For One did in the anime, so he isn't completely invincible even though his reaction time seems to be very good. I just have no idea what the upper limit of his reaction time is, so that I can't like rank him very comfortably. So I'll just put him in the mystery tier like everyone else is. Now we're on to the big boys of this verse, the strongest characters, the S tier. And first up we have Uraraka. Well, let's go over what she can do, and she can control debris, and she seems like a pretty solid fighter with the gunhead martial arts. But let's be real here, she's here because of what she did in the final war, being able to float all the twice clones, and most impressively, do that without even touching them. This puts her upper limits to God knows where, so she's really strong. Next we have Overhaul. So this is probably going to be one of the biggest deviations from the guidebook, because the guidebook ranks him without any arms and puts him at a B tier in terms of threat, which I agree with. He's basically just a regular person there. However, let's go over what he can do, which is a lot. If he touches you, you die. If he touches the floor, he starts spikes and they're very powerful. On top of that, the reason why I think he's here is with the utility his quirk brings. You can regenerate basically any damage unless you break both of his arms or destroy his head, so you have to defeat him in one hit really fast. And he even fuse, even though that's not useful in one-on-one, his regeneration on his own is just so crazy and puts him this high up in my opinion. Up we have Hawks, who has incredible speed, being able to even catch All For One off guard. His speed is the main reason why he's so high up. It's very impressive, even though self-admittedly his attack power isn't the greatest. Despite this incredible speed, he has been hit by some long-range attacks before, although he is nerfed in the final battle because he already took some damage. So I don't know how strong he fully is, but I think most characters can agree that he is around this level. Next up we have Dobby, and we know how strong he is. He has more powerful fire attacks than even Endeavor. Although it is sloppier, it is still more power than Endeavor, which is incredible. And he has incredible fighting spirit as well, being able to withstand taking a lot of damage and continue fighting on. What I think is the most impressive though is what happens at his near death, where he's creating an explosion so big that it would cremate everything in a 5-kilometer diameter. To put this explosion into perspective, that is bigger than the atomic bomb fired at Nagasaki, the Fat Man. While this is insane, I feel like it is a bit overplayed considering it is hysterical strength and not an awakening. So you can't use this feat over and over. It's similar to the 1,000,000%. Despite that, however, just putting atomic bomb level feats is already just absolutely ridiculous, considering his normal AP is also high. Next up, we have the man who defeated Dobby, Shoto Todoroki. Well, I think defeating Dobby already puts him in this tier of power, but if you want a feat, his strongest attack, the Great Glacial Eiger, was able to neutralize the atomic bomb level feat we mentioned earlier. Next up, we have Lady Nagant. Now, she might be a bit surprising given that she's just a sniper, but I think feat-wise, Hawks is absolutely terrified of her and thinks that Vigilante Deku cannot defeat her, which is already pretty insane. But if you want real feats, well, she's incredibly versatile, being able to glide through the air, her bullets traveling at similar in relative speeds to 100% Deku, which is ridiculous. But the main reason why she's here is just the sheer destructive power that her bullets actually have. Her bullets at their max were able to pierce Shigaraki, which is absolutely ridiculous. This feat is so crazy because Shigaraki is said numerous times to have the same physical power as All Might in his prime. This already puts her this high and could potentially kill basically anyone on this list if she lands a hit, although she is a sniper, so it can be hard for her to fight close range. And she can be overpowered like Deku did by breaking her rifle. So she isn't invincible, but if she gets the jump on someone, she'll pretty much win, considering very few characters can actually survive the snipe from her sniper rifle arm. Up next, we have the number one hero, Endeavor. So Endeavor can fly, which is very helpful. He has incredible tenacity and stamina, being able to fight without his arm continue fighting, and he's able to withstand overheating for long periods of time. On top of that, his attack power is just ridiculous. His Prominence Burn was able to kill All For One and almost kill Shigaraki, which is crazy. So if he lands a direct hit with that, he'll kill most characters on the list. On top of that, All For One straight up says that Endeavor is the only one in Gunga that could face him head on. Next we have Twice, and well, yeah, good luck with that one. Up next we have Gigantomachia, who was also ranked at an S tier in the guidebook. In terms of strength, he was able to easily overpower Mount Lady. Given his size, he's also just a walking disaster for cities. He has incredible strength and endurance. On top of that, he was All For One's bodyguard, which on its own is pretty impressive. His endurance is probably his most dangerous factor, being able to fight Shigaraki for an entire month. And it took Shigaraki that entire month of fighting him just to realize that he isn't straight up invincible, he just has way too much health and doesn't stop fighting. Unfortunately for Machia, he does have one anti-feat where All For One pretty much kills him with an Impure Beam while dropping his violation.
When a dog bites its owner, it must be put down.
Up next is Tokoyami. His best feat is definitely the Light of Boulder attack that he pushes on All For One, where he's able to just straight up overwhelm him and even frighten him. While this feat is insane, Tokoyami is still weak to light-based attacks. However, upside for him, it took All For One having to DH even more to actually overpower him. And as All For One says, when he gets younger and younger, his quirks get stronger and stronger, so the beam he uses to kill Tokoyami is actually very powerful. So I think his attack power is definitely up there, and Tokoyami deserves to be here on this high tier. And finally, for the S tiers, we have Hood. Hood is different from the other high-end Nomus because he's the only one that got to use his full power, and his power is ridiculous. He's more powerful than Endeavor and even faster than him, while being on par with speed with Hawks. His regeneration is also just ridiculous. Next up is the double S tier. These are the characters that are in the top of the verse, and I think I actually have enough information to rank the tiers from now on, so the characters will be ranked from weakest to strongest. First on this Esteem tier is Bakugo. Bakugo after the awakening is very, very strong. He's able to overwhelm the Omni Factor Unleashed, although admittedly his attack power isn't as great as Endeavor's or Dark Shadows. The reason he's so high is not because of his attack power, however, it is because of his speed during this awakening form. And his speed is generally just absolutely ridiculous. While in this state, he was able to outright blitz Shigaraki, which is insane given that Shigaraki has the same speed as Prime All Might. On top of that, he thinks that he can surpass All For One in this state, and given that he was able to defeat him is incredibly impressive. All For One couldn't even see him. I think in terms of speed, he's only matched and potentially surpassed by Deku using Gear Shift. So I think Bakugo is probably the second or the fastest character in the entire series while during this state. While this state is absolutely insane, it does have some drawbacks, considering that he uses explosions throughout his body, and he potentially can't keep this up for too long given that he threw up blood afterwards. However, it's ambiguous because he was already in a horribly beaten state before this, so I don't know how long he can last in this explosion state if he hadn't received that injury to begin with. It's a little bit ambiguous, but just because of how fast he can move during that state, I think he easily deserves his spot in this double S tier. Higher up on this tier is Armored All Might. So Armored All Might is incredibly powerful and incredibly versatile. I think his best feat is his Red Riot Shield, being able to block an Impure Beam, the same attack that straight up kills Gigantomachia. This feat is ridiculous, and paired with his incredible attack power, being able to stagger and even kill All For One with the Super Acid Shot, gives him incredible attack and defense and speed to keep up with All For One. Let's not forget his Can't Stop Twinkling, which also just obliterated All For One so badly he turned into a toddler. All of this is incredibly impressive, but it does have some drawbacks. The Armored All Might suit being a suit means that if he takes damage, he loses options throughout the fight, so he's bad in endurance, even though his base defense is just ridiculous and can survive impure beams. However, given that the tiers are now ranked, this does beg an important question of, could Bakugo actually defeat Armored All Might? And this question is incredibly difficult to solve for a number of reasons, but here's why I think Armored All Might is stronger. Armored All Might fights All For One when he's around his 20s and beats him to around 7 to 10 years old, so badly that Bakugo can't even tell who it was. This is very significant because All For One, although he says that he gets stronger as he goes younger, that is only to his quirks. His physical body doesn't actually get stronger. In fact, I think going from 20 to 10 is definitely going to make you weaker. And it's brought up later when Bakugo's howitzer impact was able to just mess him up, and he thinks that this is impossible unless his body had grown too weak and too frail. The main issue with this fight is that Bakugo was already near death anyway, so I don't know if Armored All Might is stronger than him or not. I just value his versatility a little bit more, so I'm going to have him higher. Up next is the one and only Prime All For One. He's used as a benchmark throughout most of the series. We know how strong this guy is. He held back All Might. He's so powerful that All Might straight up thinks that if he and Shigaraki were to fight at the same time during the final war, then pretty easily it would be GG's. Obviously, he's so strong he fought Prime All Might basically to a death match, to a point that they both look super injured, the only difference maker being that All Might punched him in the head and basically died from that. The guidebook also gives him threat level S, but obviously he's above that, and he is an S plus in every category, the only character to have that. Up next is the one and only Prime All Might. Obviously, he's treated as the peak of the verse for a very long time. He managed to defeat All For One 2 separate times, and in his prime he was able to change the weather casually and run so fast he was at Mach 10 according to Horikoshi. The fight between him and All For One is rather unknown. All we know is that All Might got his stomach ripped, but All For One got his head blown up. So All Might definitely wins, but it was very close. I think narratively, he has to have been surpassed by other characters by this point. I just think that's how the story has been written, and it makes sense. He's fulfilled his duty as the strongest, but someone has to take over after that. Someone even stronger than Prime All Might is Rewind All For One. While this pick sounds surprising, it isn't as surprising as you might think given how the fight goes. So we know how strong this guy is. We compare him fighting to a lot of characters. He held back Tokoyami Gigantomachia Mount Lady, and he fought Armored All Might and Awakened Bakugo, 2 characters also on the same tier. This is already absolutely insane. From what we know though, when he fought Prime All Might in his prime, the only difference is that All Might popped his head, and while in Rewind he can regenerate from that. So I think if Prime All Might fought Rewind All For One, Rewind All For One would actually win, because All Might would have to beat him so bad he turns into a baby. All For One just needs to land another fatal hit after the stomach wound. It's important to note that Rewind All For One and Prime All For One are not the same, because All For One gets his quirks to be stronger when he gets younger, and he can regenerate, which is why I think he barely has the edge over Prime All Might, although it would just be an extreme diff fight, just like when he was in his prime fighting All Might in his prime. So I do think Prime All For One is actually just finally stronger than his arch enemy even at his prime, so I think he's the strongest on the double S tier. However, that isn't the last tier, as we have one more tier beyond the double S tier, known of course as the plus ultra tier. These are the characters that are the strongest based both on feats and narrative reasoning. First on this tier we have Star and Stripe. So Star and Stripe isn't here because of her physical strength, which is actually just beneath All Might's. She's here because of her quirk and her statements around her. So All For One straight up says that if he gets her quirk, it's GG's. Everyone says that because Shigaraki defeated her, he's definitely surpassed All For One when it's already she should be known. And even Rewind All For One is already wary to fight her if she was still alive by now. So essentially everyone in the story is just absolutely glazing her. And it's kind of not hard to see why. Her quirk is broken. The first rule she makes, which creates a vacuum, is already so broken it kills most of the characters on the list. The main problem is that I don't think she's the smartest in terms of using her quirk, when there seems to be no limit to what she can weaken things with a new order. Just imagine if you could make a rule that makes it that people are pulled towards her, and then just touch them and win the fight by making a rule on her opponent. Her quirk is just absolutely broken, though despite her kind of muscles over brain mindset, I do think she's still this high because of what she actually demonstrates. Most namely, when she hardens the air to make an avatar of herself. This is crazy because the avatar is able to punch back Shigaraki and the Nomu and draw blood, and the most insane part is that Shigaraki himself can't even see it, meaning few characters have any ways of dealing with this. This is crazy because Shigaraki has the power and speed of Prime All Might, and he has quirks amping him, so this is just a ridiculous feat. Regarding her fight with Shigaraki, although she got help from the US military with the missiles, Shigaraki himself did get help from the Nomu, so it is hard to say if she could have beaten him by herself, which I actually doubt she could have, but this is still an incredible showing against one of the strongest characters. On top of that, Shigaraki also gains Singularity afterwards, so I think there's pretty much no argument that Star is actually stronger than Shigaraki, considering he gets even stronger after this. But I do think holding off Shigaraki when he has strength and quirks is absolutely insane. We have the protagonist of My Hero Academia, Deku. There's two states of Deku I want to talk about, the Gear Shift form and the Overlay form, because I do think there seems to be a distinction. During the Gear Shift form, he's arguably the fastest character in the series, being able to just blitz Shigaraki and turn 100% into 120% and straight up change the laws of physics. This state is crazy and allows him to move that fast. On top of that, in this state, he was able to just pummel and beat Shigaraki, who while quirkless has Singularity and has strength on par with Prime All Might. So I think it's pretty obvious that he deserves to be this high, just that showing alone. However, when Shigaraki is able to use his quirks again, Deku is pretty easily overwhelmed, and Kudo straight up says that defeating him in this confrontation is essentially impossible. So he does rely on something else, which is the Overlay form, which I don't know the drawbacks of, considering it doesn't sound safe to use Black Whip on your own body. And while the fight is mostly unknown, the show kind of frames this as a last-ditch effort, so I thought he can hold this up forever. And even if he could, it seemed like Shigaraki was still stronger than him, and Deku was just pushing it to absolutely everything. Just given how the show was framing it, I do think he's slightly weaker, but he was able to overpower Shigaraki slightly, which is incredibly impressive and puts him up here. Although he is one of the strongest characters in the show, I do think he just barely falls short, and you don't need to be the strongest to be the greatest hero of all time. And finally, who else besides Tomura Shigaraki? Let's just go over everything this guy can do. He has strength and speed on par with Prime All Might. He has surpassed Singularity, which means he can modify his body however he wants. He has so many quirks that they needed to put erasure on him at all times, and most time he fights without it. When he is able to use his quirks, everyone is absolutely terrified, and Tsukuyoshi straight up says that it is a miracle that Deku is able to hold him at a stalemate. Kudo helps reaffirm this by straight up saying that Deku cannot defeat Shigaraki once he's in this state and just needs to give him one for all. Even Google Gemini seems to agree with me that Tomura Shigaraki is the strongest character, with very few arguments for otherwise. But after all, who else besides Shigaraki? He is the hero of the villains in a show where the heroes have the advantage. He's the only one that can destroy all of Japan by himself. I think quite clearly he is the strongest. He is framed as the strongest. He shows that he is the strongest, and that's that.